Good morning, good morning. This is Lady Danny from Land of Gentris Handcrafted Herbals, coming to you live from the rural borough of South Philly. Today we're going to talk about cardamom. We've talked about it as an essential oil before, but today we're going to talk about it as an herb and some of the benefits that it has for your overall health and how you can take advantage of these. Good morning, thanks for joining. Alrighty, today we're going to talk about cardamom, or Elateria cardamomum. We've talked about it before as an essential oil. And it is a yellow essential oil, and it's a member of the Zingiberaceae family, which is the same family that is ginger is a part of. And it does have a kind of spicy, fruity, warm aroma to it. But today we're going to talk about cardamom as a spice, and these are cardamom pods. They're a little difficult to see because the pods themselves are slightly bigger. They're about the size of a raisin. There's my little chubby fingers. Well, I will tell you, when you get them fresh, make sure that you keep them somewhere sealed so that they keep for as long as possible. But once you crack open the pod, you'll get tiny, teeny, about 8 little seeds that come out. Let me see if I can get them out. It's always better if you can get them in the pod versus just a seed. Yes, you can chew them. And I'm going to tell you some of the health benefits. Okay, here we go. After you get them out of the pod, you can see these teeny, tiny little seeds that you're going to get. And it's warming, and it also helps with gas pains. It's great as a stomach kick, which means that it helps with most stomach issues. It's an anti-parasitic. At one point in time, it was considered an aphrodisiac. Elateria cardamomum was once called the Queen of Spices, and back in the day when people were, when spices were a new thing, this was actually the 3rd most expensive spice after saffron and vanilla. You can chew them. I don't think that they are a little bit tough, and even when I have them in, like when I make curries, I'll chew on, but then I'll get rid of them. I won't, because they do get, the husk of them are kind of tough, and when you cook them, even though in sauces they get softer, it's kind of like, what else? Like if you have a pumpkin seed, and you have that soft shelly thing, it's not the most pleasant thing to eat. Of course, if you're adding fiber to your diet, go with God. But I would just chew it so that you can get the seeds. You want to release the oils out of them so you can have them that way. So anyway, been used in Ayurvedic medicine for about 4,000 years, and in Chinese traditional medicine for a long time as well. It's big for digestive issues because, like I said, it works really well as a warming spice. If you're cold by nature, I tend to be, so it's helpful for that. But it also can help get the secretions and your enzymes going. So if you need to get your gastric juices going, if you want to improve circulation, if you're helping to improve your metabolic function, all throughout the body, cardamom is fantastic for that. Now, the Greeks and Romans actually took cardamom as kind of, how do we say this? Hangover cure, because basically when they were having big Bacchus fest and they were feeling a little fragile the next day, they would actually chew on them because, again, like I said, it does help to get your enzymes flowing, and it does help to kind of purge if you've overindulged in things like alcohol. So it is helpful for that. Also, the herb cardamom and the pods themselves, they believed it to be an herb of Venus. So the idea was if you actually chewed the seeds before you talked to your loved one, then you would speak nothing but eloquent words of love. I don't know about all that, but I do know it's a heck of a breath freshener. And for people who have issues with chronic bad breath, it can be really helpful in helping to squash that. So you might consider doing that. But the biggest thing that's used for is stomach issues after you're having meals, because one of the things it does is it does help get your gastric juices going. And one of the things that they find beyond just poor oral health care is to getting bad breath, because it is important that you keep not only your teeth clean, but you scrape your tongue to make sure that the bacteria are not building up in your mouth. But sometimes it's also a backup of gases and acids that are in your stomach. So by helping to calm all of that down, it can also help with your digestion as well as chewing on the seeds to freshen your breath. I would imagine if you do them in the same way, if you feel like your breath is a little and you want to go for a mint or gum, then you can just chew on a couple of seeds of that. I also know that if you take 2 pods and you crush them and pour hot water on them, you will have to let them sit for about 15 minutes. But drinking that tea also is a heck of a way to, if you're having digestive issues, anything from nausea to bloating to stomach cramping, it is really helpful for that. It's just warming and stimulating. And it can also be, somebody mentioned cookies, it can also be added with other spices like nutmeg and clove. And if you want to add it to a hot chocolate, that same kind of warming spice, it's going to be a little more exotic, so maybe your kids aren't going to be so crazy about it, because it does have a spicy warm, but there is kind of like a menthol undertone of cardamom, and so kids may not like that. But as an adult, mixed with something like chocolate, with clove, with nutmeg, with cinnamon, I kind of like a more exotic flavor, let's put it that way. So I think not only, and I think sometimes in the West we get used to having this spice goes with this thing. Like, I think most Westerners would probably think that nutmeg just goes in sweets and things. If you're making an apple pie and you want to add it, if you're doing something with pear, nutmeg goes really well. Nutmeg also goes in a bechamel sauce. In French cooking, you can't do a bechamel sauce without adding nutmeg. And I think that's the same thing with cardamom. I think we think of it as going in with curry dishes and things like that. But in Eastern cuisines, it's not only used for that, it's also used just in sweet dishes as well. So that's why I say pairing it with something like hot chocolate, because you get that, it's a mentholy taste. However, when it's mixed with things like chocolate, I think it gives that kind of almost chocolate minty thing. So it's a good idea to try it that way if you haven't tried it that way. And what I will do a little bit later is I will give you a recipe to make hot chocolate and add cardamom to it, so you can get it to taste it that way and make up your own mind. I mean, I think that's the best way to do it. You might even add it to something like a hot cider, because it pairs well with ginger and cinnamon as well. And being part of the ginger family, it's just, you know, that's a match right there. They're cousins, identical cousins, you know, so that'll go really well. But it's one of those things. But cardamom overall is fantastic. If you, we're really just talking about the herb, but I will say this: if you are interested in using the essential oil is fantastic on your body to improve circulation all over. So if you want to mix it with the carrier oil and use it that way. The only thing that I will say about the cardamom oil, and this, you don't have this issue with the herb, but if you're using cardamom essential oil, please remember that it does have 1,8-cineol, which can cause central nervous system and breathing difficulties in children. So if you're using the herb, you're not going to have that problem. You can put, if they're willing to drink the cardamom hot chocolate, fine. But if you're using the essential oil, and please do not confuse the two. We don't use, although an extrapolated version of cardamom essential oil is used in a lot of food processing and for flavor. When we're dealing with just essential oils that you're buying off the shelf, you don't want to take those internally. I don't care how many companies tell you that, oh yes, we are so pure, we're so wonderful that you can take internally. It's generally not a good idea. That's not to say that some can't be beneficial, because things like peppermint and occasionally a citrus oil might be warranted. However, by and large, most people who are dealing with essential oils on a novice level don't understand the constituents that are in the oil. And like I said, with cardamom, it has cineol in it, and that can cause central nervous system issues and breathing difficulties in children. So even when you're using it on children, it's always advisable that you not use it near their face, because if they breathe in too much, they can have issues. And it's also not indicated for use in women that are pregnant or breastfeeding. So definitely avoid that. And definitely do not use it on children under 3 years of age. Basically, your maximum on it in an essential oil is about 4%, which is going to be 24 drops in 1 ounce of oil, of carrier oil. But I don't even think that you need to go that high. If you're using it in a carrier oil and you just want to make up a blend for yourself, just do, say, 1 ounce of oil and start with maybe 10 or 15 drops. Rub it on your body, see how that feels. You don't want to overdo it when less is always more in the essential oil category. But just for flavoring and for overall general digestive health, adding cardamom can be really a fabulous way. And it's one of those things, anytime that you can use a whole food that will do something positive for you health-wise, as opposed to extrapolating out something, it's better. So Elateria, cardamom, now since I've sat there and like crushed that to death, just so I can show it to you again. And this Elateria cinnamon should not be confused. There is a black cardamom You don't see it too much in the West. It is generally used in Eastern dishes for savory cooking. Ammonium subulatum. So, and that's a different species. But this Elateria cardamomum, these are the cardamom pods that I'm talking about. Again, like I said, you can crush 2 of them, pour hot water over them for 15 minutes, and the resulting tea can be drunk to help with stomach problems, especially if you're having stomach cramping, nausea. If you are a person that doesn't really like ginger for nausea, bad breath, or for stomach issues, that's fine. If you're cooking with them, what will happen is the outside husks get kind of like that pumpkin seed texture. Usually what happens is if you're making curry, inevitably you'll take a mouthful of something and you'll feel a pop, and that'll be these. And then you'll get that like kind of smoky, slightly spicy, kind of fruity menthol hit out of them. And then generally, because when you crush on that outside hull, that's when you'll get like, God, what is that in my mouth? And you're taking it out. Sorry to be like all gross and ripping stuff out of my mouth here, but I'm just telling you what it is. But and usually what happens is if you're doing a curry sauce, they kind of get hidden in there, so you're not going to know until you actually start eating it and then you hit one of the pods. But because they are so wonderful and so warming, and they do help with digestion, get the whole pods. Don't have somebody like a powdered version or a crushed version is not as good as the whole pods. Also, the more times that you process an herb, the less shelf life you're going to have in it. So if you can get the cardamom pods, that's great. If you just get the seeds, that's okay. If you get the powder, that's going to be less. So we're talking about like 9 months or so for the pods. You're probably going to get like 6 months if you just have the seeds. And if you already have it ground up, then you were talking 3 to 4 months. Because the more surface area that you expose every time that you process it or crush it or break it down, then the faster that it goes off. And it's not like it goes rancid or anything. It's just that it's not going to have any of the same benefits. You're using it as a spice for cookies or something, and then you want to crush it up. But still, take it from the pod, crush it, and then use the crushed stuff that you have crushed and you have made into your cookies or whatever spice dishes that you're making. Oh no, it's not. If they're really hard, then they are like out of date and you probably don't need to get them. I mean, really, these are recent purchase, and like I said, you can just squish. You hear it crack? Yeah. That's it. It's not a hard, it's not like clove or something that's really, you're going to have to pound to get through. It's much softer and easier to deal with. So, well, if you've never used them, you can buy them virtually anywhere anymore. If you go to Sprouts, if you go to Whole Foods, if you go, I think Mountain Rose Herb has them, you can buy them. You know, I always prefer when you're dealing with, even though I love Mountain Rose herbs for like larger bulk herbs, if it's a new herb that you haven't tried before and you just want to start incorporating it, go to your local health food store or Whole Foods or Sprouts or anybody that you have near you. Preferably somewhere, if you have an Asian market nearby, you want to go somewhere where you're making sure the turnover is good. Like if you have a spice store in your area, then that would be fine. But I wouldn't say go to like, I don't know, Acme, like out in the middle of nowhere where they have like 3 or 4 spices in this area, because then it's probably been sitting too long and it's probably not going to have any of the benefits that you're trying to get out of them anyway. So go somewhere where you can get them. If there is an Asian market nearby, if there's a Whole Foods nearby, if there's an Indian or Eastern specialty store nearby. But I just want you to get them somewhere where the turnover is good, so you're not getting really old, dried up product, because I just showed you how quick, soft, and you can just crush that with your fingertips. If you get it from other places and it's been sitting there for a long time and you go to crush it and they're like little petrified rocks, and you know that's been sitting way too long, so you don't want to do that. So that's my tip for picking that. Elateria cardamomum. It's fantastic for bronchitis. It helps to ease gas pains. For stomach, it can help improve your circulation. It can help, according to the Greeks and Romans, is a great hangover cure if you want to make that tea and try that, which I could definitely understand because of what it does for your stomach. And usually speaking, if you've had a rough night on the tiles and drinking a little too much, stomach issues may be a problem. So the fact that it quells that, as well as it's an antispasmodic, as well as it promotes general circulation, like I said, Romans and Greeks also use it for an aphrodisiac. I haven't had enough experience with it on that level to be able to say that, oh, I had, cardamom tea and I was feeling quite randy. But if you try it and you have that experience, please let me know, because I always love empirical evidence that I can write down and let other people know that it has worked for at least a couple of other people that I know. It's an anti-parasitic. It also has that warming sensation. Even just the antispasmodic ability of it alone can be really helpful. Now, the only thing is, if you do have IBS or if you do have things like if you suffer from Crohn's and colitis, please talk to your doctor first, because the information I give you is based on if you are not on chronic other medications. So there may be some kind of drug interaction. The information that I have on the herb, if you're using the whole herb, does not give any kind of like contraindications for stomach stuff. It does say for pregnant women, it does say for people that are nursing, it does, because that whole warming sensation could have some negative effects on the baby. But if you're just having spasmodic issues and cramping and pain, then this is a fantastic herb for that. And you know what? It's inexpensive enough. You try it. If it doesn't make the situation better, then you stop. But at least you haven't made a major investment, and you're not doing a long-term thing like other drugs that you might be taking for ages before they kick in. You should know pretty quickly whether or not it works for you. And it's fantastic. Even if you want to make a tea out of it for just a mouth freshener, and you want to do like a strong tea version of it and then use that as a mouthwash. It's just really wonderful for this whole area. So like respiratory things, if you've got bronchitis issues, it helps with the spasmodic coughing and that. It also helps with the spasmodic things that are going on in the gut, and just helping circulation all around. So if you haven't tried cardamom before, and I know a lot of people around this time of year, cinnamon is really big and so is ginger, but you know what? Add a little cardamom to that mix and see how that amps up things for you and your health. It's a great way to just get a good health benefit out of something that's just should be in your like kitchen herb shelf or spice shelf. So that is it for today. In the meantime, wherever you go, whatever you do, just try and be better people, because I think when you share love and health and happiness, you're the winner. So everybody else can benefit too, but you're the winner because it just gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling, kind of like cardamom. So please do. Have a great one.